Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Noyes, I think from my standpoint for this committee, I misspoke. It was 76.5 million. You should never do math in public, but that I counted up there. But you said 10% essentially. But whether it's 10% or whatever of the 76.5 million, I would like to know if you can provide for us how many recipients, how many of those recipients were actually returned to their country, how many of the recipients were vetted, how many were not vetted prior to receiving the funding, and how many of these recipients remained in Mexico while they sought their asylum claim. I think that would at least help illuminate. Look, I don't want to be unduly critical. I represent, like everybody else here, 760,000 people. They get up early in the morning, they go to work, they're paying their taxes. We're borrowing money every single time we vote here to pay for all this stuff. We're borrowing. This is all borrowed money. And, you know, I can't speak for anybody else's district, but the district I represent, people can't afford their groceries, their gasoline, their electricity bills, their daycare bills, their normal daily needs. And when we're spending that kind of money, that amount of money, I would say it encourages people to come to the United States, but maybe you're right, maybe I'm wrong, but I should be able to tell my bosses, this is where your tax money's being spent, this is how it's being used, and right now I can't do that, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Perry, can I borrow a moment from you?
Absolutely, yield to the chair.
I was frustrated in your last dialogue because she had Ms. Val's Noise, I didn't mean to say that incorrectly, had a dialogue with Representative Issa in which the specifics of the dialogue, please correct me if I'm wrong, were they were funding a group. That same group was providing literal materials on how to circumvent U.S. immigration law, but they were paying the same group to do other things. So it's not what we were paying them to do. They were using other monies to literally give these documents on how to circumvent U.S. immigration law. We were paying for the other stuff. Yes, it was done at the same events. Yes, they were invited to the same audience. Maybe they were at an audience for, I don't know, receiving information on something, and they were given that information by this group, happened to be paid by the U.S., but they were also delivering this. It was frustrating to me that when you were asking your questions about whether they are doing different things, funding these groups and teaching them how to circumvent immigration law. Do I have a misunderstanding of your dialogue there? Yes, you funded this group that was directing people to circumvent immigration law. Your claim is that you were not funding them to do that. They must have got the money from somewhere else to do that. But yes, they were doing that at State Department sponsored events or where there was an audience for United States Department of State.
Congressman, although we did not fund the slides, it is absolutely true that nothing in those slides was intended to circumvent U.S. immigration law. In fact, it was to provide correct information about U.S. immigration law as opposed to the garbage that smugglers and traffickers put out. And the information in those slides is all information that is readily available on multiple U.S. government websites.
If it was such corrective information, why wouldn't you want to fund that? You were very specific that you didn't fund that.
Because we only funded that organization to provide support for asylum procedures in Mexico.
And Mr. Issa did speak again very specifically about where that group was directing people to circumvent U.S. immigration law. And yes, you happen to be funding them as well, but certainly a frustrating point, not.
But Congressman Perry, if I could, I appreciate your question about who is receiving cash and voucher assistance in Mexico funded by our partners, UNHCR and IOM. I can tell you that other countries also contribute funding to those organizations for cash and voucher assistance. So we will need to do some analysis to figure out how much of that funding came from American taxpayers versus other taxpayers, but I'm very happy to take the question back, and I appreciate it.
I apologize for not using your full Val's Noise. I apologize, ma'am.
I have one more question.
Noise is fine, thanks.
Okay, but now based on that information, and look, we get that other countries fund some of this stuff, and God bless them, that's great, but I'm a representative of the American people, so that's my interest. Is there a prohibition in the State Department for funding organizations that would look, these people are coming across the border illegally, right? Unless they're vetted and they've waited for their asylum claim, they're coming across the border illegally. Is there anything in State Department documentation that prohibits the use of those funds to be used to inform or provide care, comfort, whatever, to people that are crossing the border illegally?
The 2024 appropriation passed by Congress made clear to us that that the United States may not provide funding to assist with provision of information about U.S. immigration proceedings or about legal representation in the United States. And I have sent letters to all of our partners explicitly pointing that out to them. So yes, as a result of the legislation
Okay.
passed by this Congress, that is the case.
All right, thank you, Ms. Valls-Noyes.
Chair now recognizes Representative Burchett.